Visiting the community for the first time, I have to tell you that I love you for the sake of Allah. And this is a very nice and beautiful community, very diverse community, which again reminds us all of the common denominator between us, which is Islam. And it reminds us that we need to really be united, on this common denominator of Islam, and forget about any divisions amongst ourselves, forget about anything that divides us. If we're living here at the end of the day, regardless of where you came from, you're Muslim. And it is extremely important for us to have the sunnah of the ta'aruf, which is recognizing one another, recognition of one another, having ta'aruf all the time. It is very unbefitting for a small community like this community, where the Muslim community is small, and you're pretty much in a very, very beautiful state here, very nice, beautiful. But the community is a smaller community, so it's unbefitting that we come to the masjid. If you do this, please stop it. To come to the masjid and not know anyone in the masjid, and to walk away after you pray. This will have detrimental effects on the children. We have to make sure that there is a safety net for our children. The safety net is the community, because if they slip through the first line of defense, which is the family, at least they'll have a second line of defense, which is the community, to embrace them and to give them this connection to Islam. Because here, if you think about it, your connection to Islam is pretty limited. You go to school, and the vast majority of people are not Muslim. Go to college, work, wherever you are, the vast majority of the people around you is not Muslim, and your connection with Islam, tangible connection with Islam, is very limited. So for our children, if we do not make sure that they have a safety net, they have a tangible connection with Islam, they have a masjid that is accommodating, that is welcoming, they have a community that is loving and embracing, then they will have great challenges to their faith. And if that, if nothing terrible happens in the second generation, the first generation, the first American-born generation, we'll start to see it catch on to the second or third. And we really need to work hard, very hard, because no matter how much we learn and no matter what we do, if we don't really address those, essential issues of survival of our community, then we're taking the wrong highway completely. Now, after this, the bottom line is get to know one another, get to have this feeling or sense of community, that you are one big family, and get to know one another, and get to know much about your brothers and sisters, not just their names. So where do they work, networking, association, connection, all of this is extremely important amongst yourselves as a community of this masjid and now this state. Moving on to the topic of today, which is Zakah, or purification. Does Zakah mean purification? Are we coming here to talk about purification, or we're coming to talk about Zakah? It is purification. Zakah means purification, right? Zakah, which is your obligatory charity, means purification. Comes from the same root as tazkiyah, the purification of the heart. That discipline is sometimes called suluk, sometimes called tazkiyah, sometimes called tasawwuf. Basically the purging out of diseases from your heart and the inculcation of good qualities. This is tazkiyah, purification. And zakah comes from the same root, root as tazkiyah. When it means purification, it actually means purification. So how does it mean purification? It's purification of the self from stinginess, miserliness. It is purification. It is where the ghani, the wealthy, the well-off, will purify himself or herself of the diseases of greed, stinginess, miserliness, selfishness, egotism, all of this. Does that is that really important to purify yourselves from all of this? Absolutely, it is important. Because that is what got us out of the Jannah in the first place. And we can't go back to Al-Jannah until we give up those two, which is greed for money and greed for longevity, greed for eternity, immortality, and greed for money. فوسوس عليه الشيطان وقال يا آدم هل أدلك على شجرة الخلد وملك لا يبلى. The shaitan whispered to him and said, "O Adam, should I not tell you about the tree of immortality?" So this is how he tempted him. He tempted him with immortality. You will live forever. وملك لا يبلى, and positions that will never vanish, wealth that will never vanish. So that is those are our weaknesses. And the Prophet ﷺ has reported in the Sahih from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where Anas radiallahu anhu said, يهرم ابن آدم ويشب منه اثنتان. يهرم ابن آدم ويشب منه اثنتان الحرص على العمر والحرص على المال. That the son of Adam will go senile, but two things will stay very youthful in him. No matter how much gray hair you will have two things that remain youthful in you. That is your keenness, your eagerness for longevity, for more life. You know, you would be like 85 and you're going back and forth from the doctor's office, and you have like several surgeries, you're taking for 15 or 16 pills every day, but you want to live until you see your great-grandkids get married. And حرص على المال وحرص على العمر, eagerness for money, for wealth, and eagerness for life. And these are the two things that Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah said there are two things that you can't go back to paradise until you give them up, because they got you out of the paradise in the first place. So you will not go back until you give them up, your eagerness for money and your eagerness for life. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah At-Tawbah, in verse 111 of Surah At-Tawbah, إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين, Allah had purchased from the believers أنفسهم, their lives, وأموالهم, and their money, their wealth, بأن لهم الجنة, in exchange for paradise. Do you think you could deceive Allah? You got out of paradise because of your eagerness for money and life. You won't go back until you give up that. You purify yourself from that. You purify your heart from this eagerness. That does not mean that you will not love life or you will not love money as a condition. But you will have to favor the love of Allah over the love of money and life. You will have to not love money and life at the expense of your love for Allah. And that is the condition. Otherwise, the condition is to completely give up the love of life and the love of money. It's unattainable by the very vast majority of us. But the condition is you have to favor Allah's love over your love for money and your love for life. And that's what Zakah does to us. Zakah is where you take out of your money for the sake of Allah. You prove that you do love Allah more than you love your wealth, more than you love your money. And since Allah told you, you get this portion out of your money for the poor, then you do this. It's an act of purification. خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم وتزكيهم بها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, take from their money charity with which you purify them and you elevate them in rankings. And when you give that money willingly, without force, when you give that money willingly, you're proving that you're proving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I believe in you, I believe in your commands. I will favor your love over the love of my wealth, my greed, my self. That is why the Prophet ﷺ, in a beautiful hadith reported by Muslim from Abi Malik al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu, said, الطهور شطر الإيمان والحمد لله تملأ الميزان وسبحان الله والحمد لله تملأان ما بين السماء والأرض والصلاة نور والصدقة برهان والصبر ضياء والقرآن حجة لك وعليك كل الناس يغدو فبائع نفسه فمعتقها أو موبقها. In this beautiful hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, الطهور شطر الإيمان. Purification is half of faith, because faith is about what? It's about purification and beautification. It's half purification, you purify yourself from the diseases of your heart, and half beautification, تخلية and تحلية. half purification, you remove the disease of your heart, half beautification, and you acquire, you instill, you inculcate in your hearts good qualities, good attributes, good character. So since it's half purification, half beautification, half takhliya, half tahliya, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Tuhur shatr al-iman." Tuhur, which is takhliya, purification, is half of faith. Walhamdulillah tamla al-mizan, and saying alhamdulillah fills up the scale. Wa subhanallah, alhamdulillah tabla'ani bayna as-samai wal-ard, saying subhanallah, alhamdulillah fill up between the heavens and the earth. Wa salatu nur, salah is light. It's the light of your life. It is basically where you take yourself out from your busy schedule to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, stand before Allah, to converse, this soft conversation, munajah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give you guidance, to give you light, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance every day, 17 times at least. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. Do we need to click? This goes, you don't need to worry about it, okay. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, "Was-sadaqatu burhan." Charity is sadaqah, and that includes the zakah and the non-obligatory zakah as well, which is the sadaqah in the absolute sense. Is burhan, is a proof that you passed the test of favoring Allah and His love and His pleasure over yourself and your greed and your eagerness for wealth and abundance. أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرَ. The seeking of abundance, they diverted you from your main, destination, your main work in this life, which is obtaining the pleasure of Allah, until you visit the graves. And after we visit the graves, there is no recourse. Okay, so some of the modern applications of zakah, or this beautiful pillar of Islam, second after salah, third after shahada and salah, number 3 out of the 5 pillars, out of the acts, it is number 2 after the salah. If we start, maybe we should start with some of the things that are more common, and then we go into things that are a little bit less common. So some of the things that are more common in terms of, the modern applications of zakah. Some people ask, are they required to pay zakat on their salaries? Because these questions are asked by people, and even though they are not really that difficult, but they are warranted. These are questions that are warranted because during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, people did not have salaries like this. People did not used to get salaries like this. So it is a warranted question. Do I have zakah on my salary? And the answer is no. And it's not a trivial question. It actually was discussed by the Majma' al-Fiqh al-Islami, which is the Fiqh Academy that belongs to the OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference. So since it was discussed, it means it's not a trivial question. It does come across the minds of many people. Am I obliged to pay zakat on my salary? No, there is no income zakat in Islam. Zakat is not on income in Islam. Zakat is on savings. And that's out of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and out of the justice of Allah, because if you impose the zakat on income, income is not a very good gauge of people's solvency or people's wealth, whether they are well off or not well off. The better gauge is their savings. Because you could have, your income could be $100, my income could be $1,000, but I have a much larger family and I have 2 parents that I have to spend on, and one of my kids is sick and I have to pay for doctor's bills and so on and so forth. So Islam factors all of that in, and instead of having a big tax code where you have to make deductions for this and deductions for that, Islam says, you're not going to be taxed for your income or on your income. It is on your savings. Whatever it is that is left after your spending, that is where you will that is what you will have to pay zakat on. So there is no zakat on your salaries per se. There is no zakat on your salaries per se. but whatever will be saved at the end of the year, you will need to choose for yourself a zakat due date. Basically a day out of the year where you calculate your zakat. Because it will be impossible. There is disagreement amongst the scholars whether you will have multiple days for calculating your zakah. Like, according to Imam Shafi'i, for instance, the zakah, if you get your money in increments, the zakat of each increment becomes obligatory after 1 year. And that may be technically the stronger position, but practically it will be very difficult, because particularly for people who gain their money in small increments throughout the year, if they pay the zakat of each increment after 1 year from acquiring this money, like, the first month you acquire some money, you pay the zakat of that money 1 year from it, which is Muharram, first month of the Hijri year. Zakat goes by the Hijri year, by the way, and we have to pick up a date according to the Hijri calendar, the lunar calendar, not the solar calendar. So if you pay zakat for that money in Muharram, and then you acquired a little bit more money in Safar, and you pay that zakat of that money in Safar, then it will be very difficult for people. If you could do this, you could go ahead and do it. But the easier one is the position of Imam Abu Hanifa, where he said, at one point, pay the zakat on your savings regardless of when you acquired them, all of your savings. So determine that this is my day of zakat every year. All of the savings that I will have, I will pay zakat on them regardless of when I acquired this money. Even if you acquired it in increments, but you pay now on all of the money that you have. And that is easier for most of us. When do we take Imam Shafi'i's position? Let's say that you have $100,000 or $10,000, and in Muharram, which is the first month of the year, and then comes the Al-Haj, which is the 12th month of the year, in which we are in now, comes the Al-Haj, and you inherit $1 million. When do you need to pay the zakat of that $1 million? In Muharram, just 1 month from acquiring it, or 2 weeks from acquiring it? We will say no. Here you will take the position of Imam Shafi'i and pay the zakat of this money in the Hajj, the 12th month of next year, because the money, you only have the money for two weeks. Then Islam will not require you to pay the zakat on this money, this large sum of money that you acquired in the 12th month. Islam will not ask of you to pay the zakat on it, all of it, just 2 weeks after you acquired it, because part of the conditions of zakat is that it is obligatory on money that is growing money, not fixed assets, growing money that it has the potential of growth, development. So in this case, determine your zakat due date, calculate of your savings on the zakat due date, subtract from this debts that you owe to people. Add to this debts that people owe you, solvent people owe you, people that are well off, that you're quite comfortable they'll pay you back. So if you lend the money to someone and they are well off and you're quite comfortable they will pay you back, then that money is yours in their hands. So you add it to your savings, and you subtract the money that you had borrowed before from people. You subtract it from your savings, and then you come down to a final number. Stop me if it's unclear. Is it clear? All of your savings, you add to your savings money that people owe you. You subtract from that money that you owe people, and then you come down with a final number and you pay 2.5% on that money. Now, if you are a trader, if you are a businessman, and you do your inventory once every solar year, because you can't do it once every lunar year. It's just not going to work. It's a very big company. Everything goes by the Gregorian calendar in this country and wherever you live. So you will have to do your inventory every solar year, the 15th of January, for instance. Then in this case, it would be fine to pay the zakat every solar year. But what are you going to need to do is to factor this in your calculation of zakat. So instead of paying 2.5% only, you will have to pay 2.577%. You will have to pay 2.577%. Because the solar year is 11 days longer than the lunar year, right? So you will be paying zakat less often, right? If you pay zakat every solar year, you're paying zakat less often. Because in about 50 or 55 years, you will have missed 2 years of zakat if you go by the solar year. So since you're paying zakat more often than every year, you're not going to only pay 2.5%. You'll pay a little bit more, 2.577%. How did we calculate this? And if you did not remember the number, those 11 days difference between the solar and the lunar year, 11 days difference, right? So 11, multiply this by 365 days, that is the solar, the number of days according to the solar calendar. Divide this by 354 in the lunar calendar equals, wait a second, 2.5 times 365 divided by 354 equals 2.577. So this is how you calculate your zakah. If you must do it we're not talking about individuals here. If as an individual, you need to really familiarize yourself. You're a Muslim. You need to really familiarize yourself with the lunar calendar. We do everything in Islam according to the lunar calendar. The first 10 days of the Hajj come on the lunar calendar. Ramadan comes on the lunar calendar. Ashura comes on the lunar calendar. The 3 middle days of every month that we are recommended to fast, they come on the lunar calendar, not the solar calendar. So we need to familiarize ourselves with the lunar calendar. But for business people that cannot do it according to the lunar calendar, that is the equation they need to go by. That's the 2.577% is what you would need to pay every solar year. So after you come down with a number, you will pay 2.5%. Now someone will say, but I have very little savings because I take most of my money and I put it in a retirement account. So I don't have really much savings. I put all of my money in the retirement account so that I could get tax deferments and all of the good stuff. And if you do this, what do you need to do? Well, certainly we cannot tell you as long as it is in the retirement account, you don't need to worry about it, because otherwise the poor people will be lost. All of the Muslims will put their money into retirement accounts and such types of investments, and then they will not be paying zakat for the poor amongst the community. But if you have your money in the retirement account, then your money is likely in the stock market. First of all, let's figure out how much zakat do we need to pay on stocks and shares in the stock market, so that we could figure out how to pay zakat on our money in the retirement account. How much zakat do you need to pay on shares and stocks? Let's make it interactive. 2.5 on the value of your stocks and shares. How much profit do you make on the stocks and shares? Like, approximately.
Sheikh, is it on the dividend that you make on the stock or on the stock value itself?
The value of the stocks. How much growth the stocks will have?
So roughly 5%.
Roughly 5%. Actually, roughly 4%.
Yes.
With ups and downs of the market. So you're pretty close. It's 4% and a fraction. So basically, if you're paying zakat that is 2.5%, you're paying more than half of your profit in zakat. Right? More than half of the profit in zakat. But so if you want to do this, you could do it, and you will be clear, and great for you. But we can't really impose this on the public, because that is really going to be very difficult for the public to pay more than half of their profit. So if you go back and look at what the stocks and shares are, they're not cash. Are they cash? They're not cash. So why are we paying 2.5% on them? What do those stocks and shares mean? They mean that you have, like if you have stocks and shares in Apple Macintosh, the company for instance, what does that mean? It means that you have 0.0000003% of Apple Macintosh. So let's figure out what is Apple. What is the value of the company? Where does the value of the company come from? It comes from their fixed assets. It comes from their trade goods, their computers and stuff that they, iPhones that they sell. And it comes from their factories. It comes from, their intellectual rights. It comes from many, many things. Is all of this zakatable? Are factories zakatable? Are their headquarters zakatable? No, none of this is zakatable. All of these fixed assets are not zakatable. So why do you have to pay zakat on this? You don't really have to pay zakat on this. What you need to pay zakat on is their cash surplus and their trade goods. Their cash surplus and their trade goods. Because zakat in Islam is on specific things. We have zakat on naqdayn, that's zakat on cash, gold and silver and cash. That is zakat of naqd, which is currency. Currency is gold, silver, and cash, right? That is what zakat al-naqdayn is. Zakat on currency. And then we have zakat al-mashiyah, or we have the zakat of livestock. And then we have the zakat of that which comes out of the earth, and we have the zakat of the trade goods. Other than that, we don't have zakat. Rikaz is one of the types of things that come out of the earth. So what comes out of the earth is basically crops, treasure troves, and minerals. These are three different elements under the title or the category of that which comes out of the earth. So now if you look at the factories, that is not zakatable. Their headquarters is not zakatable. Their cars are not zakatable. The only thing that is zakatable out of the company and what the company's positions is cash surplus, and they usually have about 7% in the banks. The companies usually have around this number as in cash surplus, and the trade goods. So that is what is zakatable. But if you have shares in AT&T, what is zakatable in AT&T? AT&T, Verizon.
That's the value of the company.
Well, yeah, but out of the positions of the company, what is zakatable? What does the company possess? The towers?
Service.
Yeah, towers and ships and cars and stuff like that. Does the company have trade goods? No, there are very little trade goods. They sell telephones or some equipment. They will have some cash surplus. So what does that mean? It means that it is not all the same thing. It depends on where your stocks are. But usually for most people, they don't invest in particular companies. They invest in mutual funds which will diversify your portfolio so that you are covered. If some sector of some industry drops, then you will have something to basically make up for that. And in this case, your zakat will be divided amongst many companies in the stock market. The estimation here, the rough estimation, is that about 30% with a safety cushion. It's a rough estimation with a safety cushion. That about 1/3 or 30%, approximately, roughly, of the stock market is zakatable when you mix it all. Because you'll have the cash surplus, you'll have the trade goods, you'll have minerals that are zakatable and so on in various companies. But then you have many other things that are not zakatable. So about 30% of the money in the stock market is zakatable. So if you're investing in shares and stocks and you cannot determine what the zakatable portion of the companies that you are investing in, make an estimation that it is about 30%. 1/3, say 1/3 of the money that you invest in the stock market is zakatable. And you will pay the 2.5% on that 1/3, not on the entire value of your stocks and shares. But there is one exception. What is that?
If you liquidate it.
If you are a day trader, meaning that
Transfer.
you buy and sell stocks, because in this case, stocks to you are trade goods. They are not fixed investment, like someone who puts the money in the stock market and waits for 25 years for the money to grow. But if you're a day trader selling and buying stocks, you will pay the 2.5% on 100% of the value of the stocks, because the stocks in this case are your trade goods. You have a fleet of taxi cars, 50 taxi cars. Are you paying zakat on them, on the taxi cars themselves? No, you're not. You have 20 cars, you are a car dealer, and you have 20 cars for sale. Are you paying zakat on them? Yes, you are, because they are trade goods. So in this case, if your investment is a long-term investment in the stock market, you're paying zakat on 1/3 of the value of your stocks and shares, because you own a percentage of these companies. And the zakatable positions of these companies is about 1/3 of their positions. But if you are a day trader, then you are paying your zakat 2.5% on the entire value, which is 100% of the value of the stocks and shares that you own on your zakat due date, ZDD. Remember this, ZDD, zakat due date. There's got to be a due date for zakat. We remember the due date for a lot of things. Why can't we remember a due date for Allah's rights, the zakat? So we said that if you're a long-term investor in the stock market, you're paying the zakat, the 2.5% on 1/3 of your investment, not on your entire investment. So how do we calculate our retirement, the zakat on our retirement accounts, retirement plans? How do you calculate them in light of that?
Be 1/3 of the retirement.
You pay the zakat on 1/3 of your retirement plan.
But which value? The value is changing every time.
The value on your zakat due date. Then you need to figure out the value on your zakat due date. If your zakat due date is the 16th of Rabi' al-Awwal, 15th of Ramadan, every year, on that day you need to figure out the value. If you can't figure out the value precisely on that day, then you estimate the value.
If I have stocks and the stock is moving up and down for the whole year.
But every day the value of the stocks is known to people. That is something that you check on your iPhone.
But I'm talking about the end of the year.
So I'm not advertising for iPhones, by the way. The Ben test was embarrassing. But your smartphone.
Sheikh, is there a nisab on the stocks?
Huh?
Is there a nisab, a level that above it I need to pay zakat, or does it start from just any amount of money?
Nisab. Nisab is basically the zakat threshold, or the minimal zakatable income. And the nisab for the stock market, because stock market, we will treat the stock market here and gold and silver and cash and trade goods together. We will put them in one category. So if you have, it's about $3,000 nowadays. Isn't it right? 85 grams of gold will be about $3,000 nowadays. So you add your cash savings, you start the value of your investment in the stock market, you add to this also the trade goods that you have, things that you have for sale, and you add to this the gold and silver that you keep for sale, for investment. And if you have more than $3,000, then you need to pay zakat. Going back to the retirement plan, we said that we would pay about 2.5% on 1/3 of our investment, long-term investment in the stock market, not the short-term. Long-term investment in the stock market. So if we have a retirement plan, how much do we need to pay? We said we will pay on 1/3. You said we will pay on 1/3. Try to forget that number, because if you have a retirement plan, stuck because there's something behind. So if you have a retirement plan, one of the conditions of zakatability of money, the money being zakatable, one of the conditions is that you have full possession and complete control of the money. But in your retirement plan, you don't have complete control. If you must take the money out, you will pay, the deferred taxes, and you'll pay fines and so on. How much money will you walk away with? About 60% of the total you will walk away with. 40% will go out, up to 40% will go out in deferred taxes and fines. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most fair and just. The zakatable portion of your retirement plan is 60%. That money that you could walk away with. You go and you tell them, no, I want my money. You walk away with it, 60%. Now, out of that 60%, we said that this 60% is invested in the stock market. So that 60% itself, 1/3 of it only is zakatable. So your retirement plans, you will pay 2.5% on 20% of your retirement plan. What does that mean? 2.5% on 20% of your retirement plan. And we said this because we took out all of the money that will be taken from you if you withdraw your investment, and we also we're also making the zakat on the zakatable portion of your stocks and shares in the retirement plan. So this is how we came down to 2.5% on 20%. 2.5% on 20% is 0.5% on 100%. So if you want the easiest number at the end of the day, you're paying 0.5% on your retirement plan, the total in your retirement plan. So you figure out the total money you have in your retirement plan, total number, gross number you have in your retirement plan. If this is $700,000, you're paying 0.5% of that money in zakat, which will be how much? 0.5% will be
3,500.
huh?
3,500.
3,500 on $700,000, which is really not much. So that is how you calculate the zakat of your money in the retirement plan. if you do 2.5%, like if you do 2.5% on the total, you'll be fine. However, it is too much, given that the growth of the retirement plan is about 4%. You will be paying more than half of it in zakat. Yes, brother.
So you mentioned for the retirement plan, and you started with the almost all of the value is invested in the stock market. That's how we calculated all the way so far.
Yes.
What about an individual does not invest in the stock market, but he or she would invest in just like bonds, US bonds, where the many things are unknown. As you mentioned the example of Apple, and then mention example of the iPhone, where we may know most of the stuff, the value of the company, the assets and other. But in the US bonds, how would one know how much to calculate?
Well, aside from the halal ability and haram ability, aside from the, whether bonds are halal or haram, in this case, this zakat will be on the total value, because that is not the stock market. That is basically equal to cash.
The one he would get from all the penalties and which you mentioned.
You will subtract that, but you will not subtract any more than that. Yeah, because all of the value will equate to cash. Yes, ma'am.
But the money you have in the stock market,
0.5%, that is not the money you have in the stock market, that is the money you have in retirement plan. We said the money that you have in the stock market, you will pay the zakat, the 2.5% on 1/3 of it.
how does that 0.5% factor into the 2.5%? Like, you have to give up all your money. Does that make
We said that the 0.5% is just like an easy number, but it is actually 2.5%. It is, we determined that the money that is zakatable in your retirement plan is 1/5 of the total. So instead of telling you pay 2.5% on 1/5 of the total, I'm telling you pay 0.5% on the total to make it easier. But you're actually paying 2.5%, because I don't make up numbers. These numbers are fixed by the Sharia. So, but 0.5% on the total equals 2.5% on 1/5 of the total. But we determined that 1/5 of the total money in the retirement plan is zakatable, because we said it's money that is invested in the stock market, it is not cash, and we said that there will be fines deducted from the money before you can actually take hold of it.
I have a question.
Yes.
If I don't have savings, then how am I going to pay that
If you don't have savings, how will you pay?
for the retirement plan?
Okay, then it will, if you don't have savings, then it will be a debt that you will accrue and that you will have to pay when you have money. You're indebted to Allah with this money. Yes?
What is the minimum zakatable money?
Minimal zakatable money. It's called nisab, or the zakat threshold, because in Islam, zakat is obligatory only if 1 year goes by, and that is for the majority of things, certainly not for what comes out of the earth, because what comes out of the earth, it's zakatable upon harvest or extraction. But for trade goods, for currency, for livestock, the two conditions for zakat to be obligatory is that 1 whole year would have passed, and that you will have the zakatable minimum. The nisab is the zakatable minimum, or the zakat threshold. Why do we have this number in the first place? Because if you have less than nisab, then you're not well off to be paying zakat. You're not well off enough to be paying zakat. You may be actually deserving of zakat. So the nisab is 85 grams of gold. That will translate into about $3,000. And that would be the zakatable minimum. If you have less than that, you're not required to pay zakat. Yes.
You mentioned the total or net amount on which the zakat would be calculated is you have to subtract the money you borrowed or you have to pay someone else. Just kind of borrowing or loan. What about the mortgages? One has a house and he has to pay, let's say, 200K over the time period with the interest, all of these things. In this scenario, what is your...
You actually took my next point. Okay. That was going to be my next point. Thank you for bringing this up. Now, we said when you calculate your zakat that you figure out the total amount of money that you have and add to it money that you are owed by people, subtract from it money that you owe to people. You will add to it money that you are owed by people that are solvent people, that are well off to pay you back. But if you give money to someone, lend your money, give a qard hasan to someone that is not doing quite well, and your money may or may not come back, you don't need to pay the zakat on this money until it comes back. You will pay it only for 1 year. So you're adding the money that you're owed by people that are solvent. You're subtracting the money that you owe to people, the debts that you incurred, you subtract this. But if you subtract the debts that are incurred, this issue, a question came to the Fiqh Assembly of the Organization of Islamic Conference, Majma al-Fiqh al-Islami, where they said to them that most of the businessmen will not be paying zakat at all. Why? Because they incur large debts to improve their businesses, their factories, they buy machines, they borrow millions of dollars to buy machines and so on. So if at the end of the day, their factories are not zakatable, and their savings, their cash surplus is less than 7% sometimes of their position, and that is the zakatable part, and they incur huge debts to improve their businesses and their factories and so on and so forth. If they subtract the debts from their position, from their savings, they'll end up not paying zakat. They're multimillionaires. They have $600 million and not paying zakat. Because out of the $600 million, those $600 million are factories and headquarters and this and that. Let's say that they have out of the $600 million, $20 million in savings, cash, and they have incurred a $30 million debt against their factories and so on to improve their businesses. Then they're not going to be paying zakat. And if you even widen that scope, most of the Muslims will not be paying zakat, particularly Muslims who live in the West who have mortgages and things of that nature. They will not be paying zakat. So aside from the halal ability also of the mortgage, if it comes to like non-Islamic mortgage, and the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, stay tuned to the resolutions that will come out on the website of the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America, AMJA, because we're about to come out with resolutions on basically our assessment. We get asked by people, so it's not like we're trying to judge other companies. We get asked by the people, and it's part of the trust that we give answers, clear answers to people concerning the various finance companies, Islamic finance companies here in America. So the resolutions will be on the website within a few days, inshallah, regarding all of the Islamic finance companies and how Islamic they are, how Sharia compliant they are. But aside from the issue of halalability of these things, or the permissibility of these things, if you don't want to speak English, the mortgage that you incurred to purchase your house is called an investment debt, an investment debt, not a consumed debt. So the scholars said that we will have to differentiate between two different types of debt. قرض الاستهلاكي والقرض الاستثماري. The investment debt and the consumed debt. قرض الاستهلاكي, which is the consumed debt, is that you're a poor person, you want a little, you borrow money to purchase things for your household. That is قرض استهلاكي, it's consumed. And this قرض, you do subtract it from your savings, for sure. By agreement, you subtract this قرض from your savings, because this is money that you have to pay back. But the investment debts, they said that you will subtract the annual dues only from your savings. Meaning what? You have a mortgage. So, you owe the mortgage company $500,000 over the next 30 years. How much do you owe them this year? How much do you have to pay them this year? Let's say $18,000, $20,000. This year you will have to pay them $20,000. You're subtracting from your savings not the entire $500,000, but only the $20,000 that you will pay this year. You're a businessman, you have factories, and you purchase new machines for your factory, and you incur the debt of $20 million. You will not subtract the $20 million from your savings, but rather the money that you will have to pay back this year, you will subtract it from your savings. And this is the ruling according to the Fiqh Assembly of the OIC, the ruling concerning investment debts. قروض الاستثمارية. And the difference is quite clear. But they also made another condition for you to not subtract all the money. They have another condition, which is that whatever you purchased is still existent. Like your house did not burn down. Because if your house burned down, then the money that you owe to that company is pure debt. There is nothing to cover that debt. You don't have positions to cover that debt because your house is gone. Or your machines are gone. If there is nothing to cover the debt, then subtract all of the debt. Subtract the $500,000 because this is a burden on you that you will have to pay anyway, and the house is not there to cover that debt. But if the house is there, the machines are there, so you have a fixed asset that covers the debt, then those investment debts are not subtractable from your savings. The only part that will be subtracted is the money that you will pay in this 1 year. So you will subtract this from your savings before you pay your zakat. Is that clear? Yes.
So what about the property tax? Is that a debt also? You subtract the property tax if it's like $5,000 a year?
Thank you. Very good question. What about property taxes? First of all, there is the question of whether zakat and taxes are exchangeable. The taxes substitute for zakat, and taxes do not substitute for zakat. Taxes do not substitute for zakat. You will have to pay your zakat even if you pay taxes, because taxes are imposed by governments, zakat is imposed by Allah. The recipients of taxes and zakat are different. The government may decide to spend the taxes on bridges and things of that nature. The recipients of zakat.
Abu Bakr forced it?
Huh?
Abu Bakr forced it, which is the Khilafah forces zakat?
Yes, the Khilafah forces zakat, but we don't have it now. But you will have to have this self-enforcement now. You'll have to, have those monitors. Self-monitoring. But so basically zakat will have to be paid. Taxes, you pay your taxes, and fair taxes are allowable in Islam, by the way. We have this notion that taxes are not allowable in Islam. Fair taxes are allowable in Islam. But in order for the taxes to be fair, it's a long discussion. How could taxes be fair? But there is something in the Sharia called توظيف في أموال الناس, which is imposing taxes on people. There are certain conditions that have to be met. You have to tax the rich people and the government and the elites first before you tax the public, and the taxes have to be fair, and there has to be a need for people to be taxed and all of this. So once all the conditions met, then we do have something called fair taxes in Sharia. But this is different from the zakat, and the salah taxes do not substitute for the zakat. Now, property taxes that you owe to the government, and anything that you owe, any liabilities. By the way, what we said about mortgage applies to the car also. Whatever you will pay this year for the car will come out from your savings, will be subtracted. Whatever you will pay this year. Because if you buy a car over 5 years, that's a debt for 5 years. But not the whole amount will be subtracted, just what you will pay this year. But in terms of liabilities in general, you will not subtract those liabilities unless they are due already. So if your property taxes are not due yet, your zakat due date came before your property taxes became due, you will not subtract the property taxes from your savings. If your property taxes due date came before your zakat due date and you have not yet paid your property taxes, you will subtract the property taxes from your zakat. Is this point clear? Everybody clear on this point? No, you said? Okay. In terms of all liabilities, all money that you will have to pay to people, money that you will have to pay for your phone bills, for your property taxes, any money that you will have to pay to people, do you subtract this money from your savings before you give your zakat or not? We said it depends on which due date came first. If the zakat due date came before the due date of those liabilities, you will not subtract this money. If the due date came before the zakat due date and you have not yet paid your bills for whatever reason, but there,
If they came before, you have to pay, or you don't pay.
let's say you did not pay. Some people, the due date came.
If you didn't pay, if you missed due date.
The due date came in before the zakat due date, the due date to pay your property taxes, but you did not pay your property taxes yet. Yeah. Or the phone bills, or this, whatever liabilities. Yes.
Doctor, is there a difference between a property let's say your house, you're living in, a property you are renting, leasing for profit, and the property your business is in it? Is there any difference between these three categories, for example?
Is there a difference between? I wanted to ask you a question. When do we end so that we respect everybody's? Huh?
Take your time, Sheikh.
No. What time do you pray, Aisha?
When you're done, inshallah.
Huh?
When you're done, Sheikh. When you're done, inshallah, we'll open the floor for questions, then we'll pray Aisha, inshallah. Give yourself like half hour more, inshallah.
The president here and Imam and everybody is good. We're good. And the public, the congregation. You tell me when you want me to stop. Okay. Okay. The question that was asked, and I repeat the questions for the sisters to listen to hear them, by the way. The question that was asked is whether there is a difference between money between property you live in, property that you lease out, property that you use for your business. All of them are not zakatable except for a property that you intend to sell. Property that you intend to sell, that is the only property that is zakatable. So you have a company, you have the headquarters of your company, and you own that building. That building is not zakatable. You have a house that you live in. That house is not the zakatable. You have a store. You have a store, and the store has, fixtures and has like things that are valuable inside the store, but they are not trade goods. The store, all of the store, and those fixtures and valuables inside the store that are not meant for sale, all are not zakatable. All are not zakatable. To the point where if you have packaging, goods like stuff for packaging, that is not zakatable except if it adds value to the product. Then it will become zakatable because of the value that it adds to the product. But the packaging and all of that is not packaging materials that you have in your store to package, your commodities for customers. That is not zakatable unless it adds value to the goods. Then they will become zakatable. You figure out how much value they add, and that would be zakatable. So in this case, all properties are not zakatable, except the property that you intend to sell. Is this for any property that you intend to sell? According to the majority, the Hanafi, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, any property that you intend to sell is zakatable. Whether you sell it today, you sell it tomorrow, you sell it in 2 years, 20 years, 200 years. As long as you intend to sell it, it is zakatable. So you bought 3 pieces of property back home, 3 pieces of land back home. You said to yourself, I will build a house on one of them for the kids, and I will sell 2 of them when the prices appreciate. When the market goes up, I'll sell 2 of them. What is zakatable here? What is of these 3 properties zakatable? 2 out of 3. The one that you intend to build on for the kids, a home for the kids when they grow up, is not zakatable. The 2 that you intend to sell at one point when the market appreciates are zakatable. Are they zakatable according to all? Do we have anybody here from Al-Maghrib Al-Arabi?
Yes.
Yeah, we have the person here from Maghrib Al-Arabi. So it is zakatable except for Imam Malik. According to Imam Malik, it is not zakatable because he does not circulate that commodity. For Imam Malik, the one that will have to pay zakat every year on his commodities is the one who circulates the commodities, buys and sells and buys and sells and buys and sells. But for someone, he makes a distinction between the so-called Tajir al-Muhtakir or Tajir al-Mudir. Tajir al-Mudir is the merchant or the businessman who circulates the commodities, goods. He buys them, sells them, buys, sells. He'll have to pay zakat every year on those commodities. But for the one who keeps a property for later, he buys a property and he says to himself, I'll sell it when the market appreciates, when the price of this property goes up. That individual, according to Imam Malik, is not bound to give zakat. Now, which opinion is stronger? Depends on your inclinations and it depends on how you look at it. So that Jumhur, the majority, that's Hanafi, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, may say, well, the Sharia does have an interest in people not stagnating the markets. So the Sharia has an interest in discouraging people from this practice, which is buying land for later. The Sharia wants the land to be available for people who will use it now. So the Sharia discourages them from doing this by imposing zakat on them to pay every year so that they don't do it. so that you don't buy, houses and lands and keep them from the market, take them out of the market and keep them for 20, 25 years until the markets appreciate. Imam Malik looks at the interest of that person himself, and he says that this is not a man who is circulating the commodity. It is not like, so this commodity is not growing, on a constant basis by purchase and sale and purchase and sale. And if we impose it on them, and he looks also, Imam Malik would look also at basically inheritance, like let's say orphans inherited, a piece of land. And by the time those orphans, become capable of making use of their land, they will have paid most of it in zakat. So in certain cases, certainly the position of Imam Malik comes in handy and is the favorable position in many cases, particularly in the case of orphans who own a property or a piece of land. We will not ask them to pay 2.5% every year for 15 years until they grow up and can make use of their land. Further in the back, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's like to ask, if I keep the land for 15 years and when I sell the land after 15 years, I'm gonna pay the zakat.
The zakat will be for 1 year according to Imam Malik. Zakat, if you keep the land for 15 years, waiting the appreciation of the markets, and then sell after 15 years, the zakat will be for 1 year.
But what happens if you don't have attention to take it as business? You buy it and you like to keep it for some reason. Either you can sell it later on to build a house for your kids, or either you can build a house in it for your kids. And from the beginning when you buy it, you don't have attention to make business with it. Do you still have to pay zakat, or just if you become later on decide to sell it and you pay the zakat?
Okay. If your intention is unclear, let us say you have a property and you have unclear intentions. You may build on it, you may sell it, you're not sure. Now, in general, what is considered in the Sharia is the weightier intent. So usually you will have a stronger inclination towards one side. You really bought this for the kids to build the home, but in case the kids did not like it, in case the neighborhood is not looking good at the time you will build on it, I will sell it. Here, your intention is to build on it, not to sell it. Your predominant intention. And then you intend to purchase a property for sale, but you say to yourself, I may also build on it in the future if it looks good. And then you work based on the dominant intention. Let us say there is no dominant intention, then the intention of sale will have to be favored, and you will have to pay zakat, because here the intentions are equal, there is no dominant one, and you will have to favor the side of clearing yourself in front of Allah. The same applies to the sisters and their gold. Sisters who have gold. Now, sisters who have gold, the issue of the zakat of gold for jewelry for sisters, gold and silver for the sisters, is an issue that is debated between the mazahib. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, they will have to pay zakat on this gold regardless of the intention. According to Imam Abu Hanifa, if they possess gold, they will have to pay zakat on this gold and silver regardless of the intention. And that's not all jewelry, by the way. If they have diamonds, they don't have to pay zakat on that. It's gold and silver because they have the potential of growth. because they used to be used as currencies, and up until now they are in many ways currencies as well. Up until now, you know, the Federal Reserves in all countries, they have their money printed against the gold reserve. And so gold has been always the gold standard in terms of currency. So if the sisters possess gold and silver, and regardless of the intention, they'll have to pay according to Imam Abu Hanifa. But according to the three other Imams, Imam Malik and Shafi'i and Ahmed, they would have to pay zakat on this gold and silver if they intend investment by having this gold and silver. If they intend to have it for investment, not to have it for personal use. Not to have it for personal use. And this is one of the times when they actually switched tables. Because usually Imams Malik and Shafi'i